Hi, this is Stan. Welcome back. I had a bit of a vacation over the holiday. Time to get busy now again. I've got lots of projects lined up. It's kind of a cold and blustery day out today. Perfect day to be here in the shop. Got the heater on and got a couple of little projects in mind. One of which is a great little handy kitchen project, so stay tuned. Well, over the holidays we picked up a food processor, one of these Cuisinart gizmos, and it came with a couple of these fancy cutting discs and a little bit of a axle shaft thing to hook onto. But that's it. They kind of lay around, and we need something to kind of hold these things. So first of all, they don't roll around, and second of all, they're not very easy to get cut on because these are super sharp. So let me show you what I came up with. So this is what's going to store these accessories. It kind of puts the cutting surfaces away from hands, and it even has a little place to store this little mounting shaft for them. I had a spare piece of walnut sitting around, and so when I was staring at these things, I thought, you know, these look just like the circular blade on my table saw. So that gave me an idea to cut some grooves into a piece of wood and to be able to store these effectively. I can show you what the grooves look like here. So here's the little hole, and here are the two grooves, and again they're rounded. They're a partial circle, which is just an automatic feature of the table saw. So tell you what, I thought that I would make another one of these really quickly. I've got a little piece of pine here, just a scrap. No, this was just a scrap, but this I kind of wanted to make out of walnut, something a little prettier because it'll hang out in the kitchen, maybe even up on the countertop. So this is a great little project. Should take you less than a couple of hours, and it'll be a fun little gizmo that'll come in handy in the kitchen. Now I only have two of these discs to worry about, and this little stalk here. We've had previous food processors that had a lot more of these discs. So the width of your little scrap piece of wood is going to have to accommodate however many of these that you have for your unit. On ours, just these two. And as a matter of fact, on the other machine we had a bunch more of these, and like most of them never got used. So this one turned out to be about 2.5 inches wide, which gave enough room for our discs to be mounted, as well as you can see there's a little extra thickness for this attachment portion. So roughly 2.5 inches wide, and this is about 8 inches long. So again, you may have to make yours a little wider. I'm assuming your discs will be about the same size. So an 8 or 10 inch piece of wood I think is going to work out just great. So first thing to do, let's make some rough cuts on our little piece of pine. 2.5 by, I'm going to go just a little over 8. Okay, 2.5 by 8. Now this isn't going to be really pretty. You can see there's a knot right over there. But I'm just building this again just to show you the technique. I won't be using this. It'll probably go on the scrap heap once I'm done. Alright, so one thing we want to do, there's going to be a good edge here. We should just quickly trim a nice smooth edge. Okay, so now we've got a finished edge, and I want to come back maybe 3/8 of an inch and I want to cut a section off the end, and you'll see what that's for later. Okay, we want to save this little piece, so let's go back over to the bench. Next, I'm going to lay this disc out here right to where it intersects with this top corner, and I'm leaving a little more than 1/8 of an inch, just a little bit of a gap. I don't want it to come all the way down to the bottom of our piece of wood. And I'm just going to score that arc, trace it around there. Okay, can you see that arc? Now, I drew it up this way, but actually this bottom line is going to come all the way out because we're going to feed this piece into the table saw. Once we've cut our arc, then we're going to glue that piece back on that we cut off, and that's going to create a stop. There'll be a natural stop over here. So on this finished piece, I left about 3/8 of an inch on the two sides and scribed a line here, and that's going to be the outside of our groove. So let's mark this one up the same way. So let's come in about 3/8 on either side. And since we'll be cutting upside down, I'm going to put our marks on the underside so that I can see what's going on. So I will mark these out to the end. Okay, so there's our line for 3/8 here and 3/8 here, and then our grooves are going to be here and here. So I'm going to trace these lines down through the end so that I can see what's going on. So now I can see these on the saw. This is where our cuts are going to be. And what we'll do is we will start on our lines and we will work in, and we'll keep testing it against the disc to make sure we don't get the groove too fat. Since only a tiny amount of this disc is going to be held, if the groove is too loose, these discs will be flopping all over the place, and we don't want that. Alright, we're back over at the table saw. You can see our two 3/8 of an inch marks on the side. I transferred those over to the end. But also, you can see where this arc is here. I marked the end of the arc, and I traced that over the top of the board as well, because I'm going to put a mark over here on the fence so that when I slide this board through the saw, I know where to stop so that the groove will end up not going past this spot on our piece of wood. But first, let's set this here and lower the blade to make sure that it doesn't come up past the top of this wood, that it observes that tiny little 1/8 inch gap or so on our piece of wood. Okay, there we go. The blade is set. I'm going to lock it down, and we'll bring our fence in now far enough to observe that first 3/8 gap on this side, and we'll make our first pass. So here you can see the saw blade where it meets the top of the table. This is the mark on our wood, and I put a corresponding little mark on my rip fence so I know where to stop this piece each pass. So let me run a couple of passes into the saw. You can watch that and then we'll measure it. Alright, can you see the groove we cut in there? There's the end view. Now that's not quite wide enough, but I definitely wanted to stop. You can see I've got maybe another couple of passes to do on the saw, and so I'm going to check it each time I pass it through the saw now so that I don't get this groove too wide. And there's our two grooves. Now don't be shocked if you have a couple of discs like I do and they're not exactly the same thickness, which is my case, so don't be shocked. You might have to customize the grooves for each disc. But anyway, see how it rides in there? And watch out for these sharp edges. Okay, so now let's pop over to the drill press and let's just put a hole in here for this little guy. I'll set the stop up here so that we don't drill too deeply. And there's my mark where I want the hole. So there's our hole, there's our two grooves. Then we're going to take this little piece that we cut off earlier and we're going to glue it onto the end, which will trap those discs into our holder. So now, once this is fully dry, you can sand this down, maybe chamfer these edges a little bit, do whatever you want to pretty it up, use some stain, paint it. It's up to you how nicely you'd like it to look. But you can see it took very little time to build this. So here's the one out of walnut, here's the one out of pine that we just made in a few minutes in the shop. There you go. Really helpful little piece of kit. Doesn't take much in the way of materials or time and ends up being really handy in the kitchen. Thanks so much for joining me this week. I've got a lot of little projects like this that I've done in the kitchen. I should probably do an episode one of these times of just showing you the little gadgets and gizmos that I had fun making and that are useful in the kitchen. But anyway, for now, that's it. Hope to see you right here next time.